Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to launch his 2024 presidential bid next week. That's according to people familiar with the planning, CBS reports. A kickoff event is expected to be held closer to June 1st. The Florida governor and former President Donald Trump have been going back and forth in recent days. It started when a super PAC supporting Ron DeSantis slammed the former president's appearance on the CNN town hall last week, saying, quote, "On the same day Ron DeSantis was assailing Joe Biden's border crisis, Donald Trump was on CNN attacking DeSantis and lying about finishing the border wall." Trump then hit back at DeSantis over Florida's new 6-week abortion ban, telling the messenger that, quote, "He signed 6 weeks. Many people within the pro-life movement feel that was too harsh." Trump then went on to say this about the heartbeat law during an interview on Newsmax.
Do you think that 6 weeks is going too far? Is that going to doom Republicans with the moderates in this country when it comes to 2024?
Well, Rob, first of all, I'm the one that got rid of Roe v. Wade, and everybody said that was an impossible thing to do. I put on 3 Supreme Court justices. Very few people have had that privilege or honor, and they are terrific people, and they happen to believe that Roe v. Wade should not be there. It's been now brought back to the states. And what I've done is I've given the pro-life people, who are wonderful people and loving people, I've given them the power of negotiation, because now they're able to negotiate something that's going to be very important.
So he didn't really answer the question there, which is interesting, because he has hinted on other occasions, and there's been reporting that privately he's discussed that he does think 6 weeks, what DeSantis did in Florida, is not palatable to many states in America. Now, Ron DeSantis, it might be fine for Florida. Ron DeSantis did it for Florida. It's people like Lindsey Graham, actually, who introduced the insane idea of having a federal policy on abortion. I think most people in the Republican coalition, even most people who do want much stricter abortion policies, know that federal action would be would kill Republicans at the ballot box.
So we already saw what this issue being on the table did to Republicans' midterm chances. It tanked them. They had a very disappointing midterm season. Caitlin Collins asked him this question at the CNN town hall, and he gave a similar answer as to this non-answer he gave here. This is one of the places where I think Caitlin Collins would have done well to press him harder instead of letting him off the hook, because there is a recognition that you can hear from Donald Trump in all of his statements on this topic, that he understands that extreme opinions on abortion are not aligned with the American public. 6 in 10 voters support legal abortion in most cases. Only 10% of Americans think abortion should be illegal in all cases. And part of why the 6-week ban is so draconian is because it's barely longer than a woman's menstrual cycle, and so many women don't even know they're pregnant at that point. And especially given how abortion access has been restricted in so many states, even if you find out at your 5th week that your period has been late a week or whatever it is, a lot of folks are going to have a really hard time finding abortion services within that little remaining window. So it constructively is going to ban abortion for many people. That is not popular. Trump knows it's not popular. He has said it's not popular. He has made all of these hints and statements over the time, like, oh, Republicans are getting over their skis on this one. But he's managed to find this rhetorical space where he can still claim credit for Roe and Casey being overturned, saying, I'm not advocating for a federal abortion ban. All I did was make it so that the Republicans have leverage. Pro-life people have leverage.
Well, he made it so that Republicans in states where conservatives are more of a majority, where there's more pro-life sentiment, can choose for that state to have a more restrictive abortion policy.
They can choose for it to be an abortion ban. Because remember, you can have restrictions on abortion under Roe and Casey. It wasn't free for all. States can't legislate around abortion because Casey was the law of the land. States had all kinds of abortion restrictions, but it basically protected it up through the first trimester, I believe it was the standard. So now here we are. And I do think it's telling that this was one of the few areas that Trump was a little bit on unstable footing and was very clearly dodging the question during the course of the debate. And I wonder if this gamble, saying, give me credit for overturning Roe, but also don't ding me for being part of basically enabling something like a federal abortion ban from potentially being promulgated is an issue. I said at the time, I tweeted, I believe at the time, Caitlin Collins needs to ask him if he would sign a federal abortion ban into law. Would he veto a federal abortion ban if it came across his desk? That's the kind of question he needs to be pinned on answering directly.
Right.
Yeah, well, in the latest jab in the back and forth, DeSantis hit back at Trump saying, quote, protecting an unborn child when there's a detectable heartbeat is something that almost 99% of pro-lifers support. As a Florida resident, you know Trump didn't give an answer about would you have signed the heartbeat bill that Florida did that had all the exceptions that people talk about. This comes as new analysis from the Washington Post points out that Republicans have not fared well at the ballot box, as we mentioned, since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, including in Tuesday night's special election.
Although I always have to caveat that with getting rid of Roe and allowing states to set more limits on abortion if they want to was one of the most pivotal, important conservative policy outcomes they've been trying to get. So even if they have suffered for it at the ballot box, that doesn't, from the conservative perspective, it's not like, oh, we shouldn't have done that or something. Like the point of winning at the ballot box, right, is to eventually then implement policies you want. Right. So sometimes politicos get like really in their head and are like, oh, how can we can't win if we do that policy. Well, like the point of winning is to do the policy. The point is not to win like just for fun, like it's a board game or something. Like,
Well, sure.
Beat you at Monopoly.
Well, sure. I mean, I do think that there is a...
The point is to win so that you can then construct a more enduring political coalition to get through the policies that you're...
Right. And when you talk about the policies, that's the issue. We have a problem in this country where we talk about politics and rights and freedoms without really delineating between like positive freedoms and negative freedoms, and what is a kind of an authoritarian restriction on your rights versus laws that are protecting your ability to do what you want without fear of restrictions from the federal government. Mm-hmm. So, Roe decriminalized. There were a lot of states that had criminalized abortion. Roe decriminalizes abortion, says it's your right to do what you want to do. States can legislate around it. It can make you have to jump through certain hoops, but not hoops that are too, high or whatever, too high a barrier, and it protects some basic fundamental rights. The same way that the whole suite of constitutional protections are basically preventing you from having draconian rules put on you. You have the right fundamentally to bear arms. Right. You can legislate around it, but you have that fundamental right. You have fundamental speech rights. You can legislate around it, time, place, manner, restrictions, those kinds of things, but there's a fundamental right. And so I think that Trump is being a little slippery here. Roe said you have a fundamental right. So him saying we're going to take away that fundamental right, what is the purpose of doing that except for allowing states to go back to that draconian all or nothing that we lived in before? If we really were invested in the idea that states should have more leeway, one, they could have been litigating a change to Casey and Roe that was not overturning it completely. Remember, the underlying Dobbs case, I think, involved a 14-week abortion ban, not a complete overturning of Roe. And there was
That's what they wanted. They were going to the court to get a 14-week.
And the court gave them more than they asked for.
No one can say that's. I mean, that's what France has, right?
Sure.
That's not. It's where the most of the American people you can find a plurality of the American people saying
there's a question
that's okay.
as why Trump's Supreme Court stepped away from what the plurality of American people want, or what even the litigants in that case were asking for, and said, actually, it's the wild, wild west again, and you can do an abortion ban.
Well, I mean, the Supreme Court decided that they don't think. I mean, the majority of the Supreme Court decided they don't think the Constitution includes that right.
So that's what when Trump is owning that, he has to own creating the reality that a federal abortion ban can now be in place. He can sit here and say, well, most people wanted a 15-week, and I'm with America on these kind of things, but he and his court did not. They way overstretched their skis. They way exceeded what the litigants in Dobbs actually asked for, and basically were gunning for the policies that now some Republicans are supporting, which is a federal abortion ban. So I don't think that Trump can claim credit for appointing those justices without having to also own the responsibility of appointing justices that would rule in such a way that's both out of step with America and out of step with what the litigants in the case before them were actually demanding.
Well, right, but you can be a constitutional scholar who independent of your own views about what the abortion policy should be, you could think abortion should be legal, but nevertheless the Constitution doesn't actually protect that right in the
you can make up whatever you want. The law's fake, and
they would argue
that
people are made up the privacy protection for abortion in the
made
Constitution. It's all vibes.
Everything is made up.
Well,
the law is made up. We live in a society, and we decide what kind of society we want to live in. There's no manna, there's no rock falling from heaven that has all the rules inscribed on it. We live in a society, and we make decisions about what kind of society we want to live in. And Donald Trump, he vetted his judges and put judges on the bench that made this a possibility. So if he wants to own credit for overturning Roe and overturning Casey, he also has to own credit for putting judges on the bench that would rule in such a way that's so wildly out of step with, I would say, the law and precedent, first of all, but also out of step with what the majority of American people want, and there might be electoral consequences for that.
We will see. More Rising right after this.